Sarah, you're in luck, said Anna, winking playfully at me. In what way? I asked, surprised, as I fastened the last button of my daisy-adorned medical coat. I couldn't stand dull white coats, so I bought myself something cheerful. It's nicer for the patients. They don't get scared of white coats. And it's more comfortable for me, I used to say. You've been assigned to Mr. Eno's room, that rich man. If he likes you, he'll reward you generously. Someone from our team mentioned that you're on duty today, Anna explained. What's he doing in our clinic if he's so rich? Couldn't he find a better place? I asked. That's not why. He's friends with our chief doctor. It seems like they're childhood friends. Sometimes he comes here to take care of his health, heart or nerve problems, something like that. I haven't looked into it, Anna replied. I don't know if I'm lucky. I can't stand those selfish rich people who expect everything to be perfect. From the bedsheets smelling of mountain air to having a perfect nurse to give their injections. I've dealt with them before. Why do you think I came here? Because dealing with patients here is simpler, without all the hassle. I blurted out. Don't worry, this guy is nice. The girls wouldn't say that for nothing. Go on, take your post, girlfriend, smiled Anita, picking up her green folder with the doctor's orders and leaving the nursing station. Mr. Eno, an elderly man, was ensconced in a private room. There were only 2 of these rooms in the clinic, and they were usually empty. Who needs to pay extra for comfort? Not that kind of clientele. Good morning, Mr. Eno, I greeted the patient. My name is Sarah. I've been assigned to look after you. Hello, Sarah. I'm glad such a lovely girl is looking after me, ready to obey any order, swallow bitter pills, endure injections, he said, a slight smile touching his lips. Very well, Mr. Eno. That way you'll recover quickly, I replied. Don't be so formal. You can call me Gustavo, the patient insisted. How are you feeling? I asked sympathetically. Not very well. My heart keeps reminding me of your presence. It hurts as if it could stop beating at any moment, sighed Gustavo. Don't worry, let your heart keep beating. It's too soon for it to stop. Too soon. I'll give you a vitamin injection and then you can rest, I reassured him. Thank you, Sarah. It's a beautiful name. It was my late sister's name, Gustavo added. I administered the injection to my patient without another word and said goodbye. This guy doesn't look sick, I thought as I walked down the corridor. People with heart problems don't usually act like this. They're not in the mood for jokes, and he was smiling and polite. I dismissed the thought. People are different. Some panic at a scratch thinking they're going to die, while others smile despite being covered in wounds. Keep an eye on the old man, Sarah, the head doctor called out to me in the corridor. He's a friend of my late father's and a very good person, but now he's very unhappy and lonely. His daughter left him to live in a distant city with her mad artist. Okay, Mr. Rodriguez, I'll make sure Mr. Eno feels very comfortable here, I assured him. Thank you, Sarah. The doctor patted me on the shoulder and went about his business. The rich man's room, as all the nurses called each other, looked more like a businessman's office. There was a desk with a laptop, even a printer on the shelf above the desk. There was also a massive leather armchair, organized piles of papers on the table. You shouldn't be working right now, I said as I entered Mr. Eno's room. The head of a company can't afford to fall ill. They always need something from a poor old sick man. He laughed softly. Manura Travel Agency. I read silently from one of the documents. Nice name. It's my daughter's business, sighed Gustavo. She chose that reckless artist over me and the comfortable life. Maybe she just loves him, I suggested cautiously. When you love someone, wealth doesn't matter, as long as you're with them. You're probably right, dear. Not everything can be measured in money. I didn't realize that until too late, the man replied with a touch of pain and hopelessness in his voice. I didn't know what to say. There was so much pain and despair in the man's voice. I handed Mr. Eno the pills and a glass of water. He drank obediently and turned away from me. I left the room with a heavy feeling in my chest. I wouldn't be myself if I didn't find out what was happening to this old man, I thought as I walked down the corridor, as usual, with a lot to do. One day, I managed to discover something that turned several people's lives, including mine, upside down. In Mr. Eno's room, there was a bathroom, and from there you could access both the patient's room and a special utility room where various supplies were stored. Only the staff had access to this room. I, always a girl with a sense of humor, as my patients loved and my colleagues appreciated, quickly slipped into the utility room, as I called it. I opened the bathroom door and listened intently. "Gustavo, my dear, what are you planning?" I heard Mr. Rodriguez say. "Filippo, my boy, I have to try. The main thing is to spread the rumor. That's my job. The guys are waiting for orders to start this publicity stunt. Gustavo Eno is on his deathbed. He has only one wish, to see his daughter." "Does that sound convincing?" asked Gustavo. "It does, but will Manura rush to say goodbye to her poor daddy whose heart is hanging by a thread?" laughed the doctor. "I don't know about that. My daughter has always been sensitive and kind. I can only hope for that," replied Gustavo. "Yes, so sensitive that she ran off with her artist and didn't care about her father," said the doctor. "You know, I'm to blame for that. Why did I decide to blame the girl for that dirty deed? I just wanted the best for my daughter. But what's best for her, I didn't think about. I thought I knew everything in advance." "Arrogant fool," lamented Gustavo. "Well, go on, old man. I think you're living very well here. If you need anything, you know I'm ready to help you. Take care of your heart, Gustavo," said the doctor, leaving the room. Gustavo started pacing back and forth, from the window to the door. It was clear that the man was nervous and pondering something. Wow, like in a movie. He wants to reconcile with the daughter who ran away from him years ago, spending her status and wealth. He's even ready to spread the rumor that he's seriously ill. What an imaginative character, I thought as I carefully locked the door to the utility room. I decided to find a convenient moment to talk to Gustavo. Maybe I could help him. I really wanted to. I lost my own parents early in life, and I knew what it was like not to have someone close who understood and supported you in difficult times. Maybe that's why I wanted the father and daughter to be reunited. "Good morning, Gustavo," I greeted, entering the rich man's room. "How did you sleep?" "Hello, Sarah. Not very well. I had a dragon in my dreams. I spent the whole night trying to escape from it," he laughed. "And did you manage to escape?" I asked, putting the medicine box on the bedside table. "I did, but he burned me, the brute. It looks like I won't be rid of this dragon until the end." Gustavo sighed. "Do you have parents?" I asked. "My parents died when I was very young. I only have a 5-year-old daughter, Jocelyn," I replied. "I'm sorry you were orphaned so early, dear," said Gustavo, sympathizing. "And your daughter's father, I don't know anything about him. He left us when Jassy was only a year old. He said he'd met an old flame and couldn't cope with the feelings that resurfaced. It was hard for me, alone with a little girl in my arms, no money, no job. Thanks to our neighbor, Dona Clara, if it hadn't been for her, we would have been lost. I still mention that good woman in my prayers every time. She passed away 2 years ago." "Yes, you've had a hard fate, my dear," said Gustavo, looking at me sympathetically. "Take care of your little girl. I failed to protect mine." "Don't say that. Manura is alive and happy." "Yes, but she doesn't want to see me. I find out about my granddaughters from other people. I had to hire a private detective to find out about my daughter's life and her family." "And what did you find out?" "She lives with her artist in a small house. I have 2 granddaughters. One is 11 now, and the other is 5. Like your Jocelyn." "And what does your daughter do?" I asked, sitting down on the edge of a chair. "She's a teacher, imagine. She works in an ordinary school, teaches primary grades, and could have achieved much more," said the old man, waving his hand. "Have you ever thought that Manura might be happy? Maybe she's achieved exactly what she wanted." "Maybe, Sarah. I've convinced myself that you can't be happy with a simple artist and live in obscurity." "Why did she run away?" I asked cautiously, and Gustavo told me his long story. He had always been ambitious. When he married Manura's mother, he was just an ordinary employee who helped customers choose the right ride. He did his job well and was valued in the team. Over time, Gustavo became his boss's right-hand man and then rose to general manager. The travel company became his home. It was now thriving, all thanks to Gustavo's perseverance and hard work. Manura was never attached to her father's money. She couldn't be forced to do anything against her will. Many in her circle called her crazy. With so much money, she could have gone to any university, done anything, but she chose to be a teacher. She enrolled in college on her own, without any help from her father, and she didn't ask him for anything. Manura's mother was torn between 2 fires. Her husband was indignant that she hadn't raised her daughter to be docile and obedient. listening to the opinion of her father, who knew exactly what she needed and what was best for her. And Manura cried on his shoulder, saying that she was tired of her father's pressure, that he didn't understand or listen to her, that she too was a person with her own opinion. Dolores died when Manura was 17. The cancer took her in a matter of months. Gustavo's money couldn't help. Manura blamed her father for her mother's death. "It's because of you that Mom got this terrible disease," she shouted. "You pressured her, accused her of things she wasn't guilty of. Do you know that she cried at night?" "No, I didn't know that," replied her father. "How could you? You only care about business, the honor and name of your company, your creation above all else. Do you think your wife's tears are an insignificant problem, a mere trifle? Everyone should just do as you say. Only you in this world know how to live, not just for yourself, but for others too. You only care about status and money. You don't care about people's feelings and desires." That's when the father hit his only daughter for the first and last time. She didn't speak to him for a month, and then she met Alejandro, a young artist who worked as an illustrator for a children's magazine, and accepted orders online. "Papa, Alejandro asked me to marry him," Manura said one day. "What? That poor bastard? What can he give you?" asked Gustavo, irritated. "He can give me love, Papa, and care. We'll work, save up and buy an apartment or a small house. We can live with you for now. Our house is so big and empty. That good-for-nothing won't set foot in my house. If he means so much to you, then arrange your life without me. I'm willing to give you everything. You can carry on my business, and you choose the poor bastard, that artist who will be a failure by the time he's 40. I know these people in creative professions. None of them ended their lives in a normal way. You know, Dad, I'd rather live my whole life in poverty, but with the person I love, than with a father who dictates every step and wants to make me unhappy by forcing me to work in a field that my soul doesn't resonate with. I'm leaving to stay with Alejandro. He rents a room on the outskirts of town. That's where we're going to live." "So that's where you're going to live, on the outskirts. You won't find happiness in the city center." Manura didn't say another word. He gathered the essentials and left quietly. Gustavo waited a few days, but a month passed and his daughter hadn't returned. So the desperate father resorted to extreme measures. He decided to separate his daughter from that artist, Alejandro. He planned to frame him with a dirty drug distribution deal. He had enough connections, so it was easy for him, but Gustavo didn't stand a chance. That day, Manura returned home. She wanted to reconcile with her father, to convince him that she and Alejandro loved each other and wanted to be together, but she didn't want to be in conflict with her father. When she entered, her father was on the phone, discussing exactly that dirty business he was planning to involve his beloved in. Manura rushed out, forgetting the box of chocolates she had brought on the table. That same evening, the young couple left the capital for a small coastal town. Since then, the daughter has cut off all communication with her father, simply erasing him from her life. It wouldn't have cost Gustavo anything to find her or even kidnap her if he wanted to, but he realized that Manura wouldn't give in. It was her choice, and he simply had no right to impose himself, let alone interfere in her life. Really, it was too late. How can I win back my daughter's trust? Gustavo had no answer to this question. Perhaps now it was the most difficult question of his life. The same question haunted him now. That's why I decided to commit this foolish act of faking my terrible illness, Gustavo said bitterly to me. I sat in silence but listened attentively. It was clear that my whole being was responding to this sad story. What do you hope for your daughter? I asked suddenly. For her to come and forgive you, to throw herself into your arms? I don't know, young lady. I really don't know. I realize I've been a terrible husband and father, selfish and stubborn. But I don't want to die without hugging my Manura and my granddaughters. Imagine, they were born and grew up almost without me. I didn't see how they started to walk, talk, what they've lived through all these years. Gustavo covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. I understood that he could no longer hold back his tears, tears of bitterness and longing, of his own powerlessness and the pointlessness of past disputes and grudges. Maybe you think I'm crazy, but you need to make sure your daughter doesn't know it's you. You need to go there, to that God-forsaken town you call home, and settle down near her house. You need to become her friend again. win her trust and love. It will be a love not for her father, but for a lonely, kind, and caring neighbor. If you really want that, you'll have to become that kind neighbor, not just appear to be, but actually be. You have to truly accept your son-in-law because he is Manura's beloved. Are you ready for that? Sarita, where does this wisdom come from? You're not even 30 yet, Gustavo marveled. I'm 31, I'm passionate about psychology, and I love psychological thrillers and detective stories like no one else. Although you exaggerate the wisdom, I just don't know what else to suggest. I can almost see you there in that hopeless little town, walking along the beach and your girls running towards you. Sarah, that's impossible. How can I just leave everything and go to some godforsaken town? Everything is possible. It just takes longer for the impossible, I replied simply, and got up from the chair. If you want to experience what it means to love your loved ones again, do as I say. I left the room and Gustavo remained seated in his leather chair. There's something in the words of that pretty, dark-haired nurse, he murmured. There's definitely something. Gustavo spent the night miserably. He kept thinking about my words with his big brown eyes. After all, she was right. If you want to experience your daughter's love again, you have to act, become the person she wants to love, even if that means being a lonely old man living nearby. How's your dragon? I asked as I entered the patient's room the next morning. The dragon said that only a sweet girl with big brown eyes and an angelic voice can save me. He also said that she has a wonderful 5-year-old daughter. Oh, stop it. And how can she do that? I'll tell you everything now. Do you have time or do you have to administer medication to patients? Yes, I've checked all the others. I left your room for last. I smiled and sat down on the edge of a chair. Tell me, what's the dragon's plan? Sarita, my dear, I agree. I agree to leave everything and go to that desert, but not alone. With whom then? I asked in surprise. With you, replied the old man simply. What? Are you kidding? Not at all, beautiful. We're embarking on an exciting journey. I can't do it alone. But I've just started working at this clinic, and Josie... Don't worry, she's coming with us. I'll take care of everything. You'll never need anything, I promise. Mr. Gustavo, I beg you. He held my hand. I can't do this alone. And who are we going to pretend to be there? Well, for example, let's say you're my niece, and Josie is my granddaughter. You're quite the adventurer and also the head of the company, I smiled. So you're in? Asked Gustavo hopefully. What if your daughter recognizes you? She'll recognize you. You haven't stopped communicating for 30 years. I'll have to undergo surgery, he shrugged. What do you mean? A bit of plastic surgery wouldn't hurt. Are you really willing to undergo surgery like that? I shifted in my chair. It's not just for that, Sarita, but for the love of loved ones, to reconnect with them. All right. We're with you, I said solemnly. Our lives changed dramatically. We started doing things we'd never done before. Gustavo left the clinic explaining to Filippo that he had changed his mind about pretending and making a scene on the internet, delegating his affairs to a temporary deputy, taking part in some procedures, preparing for plastic surgery. Gustavo certainly didn't plan to become a completely different person, but he still wanted to change something about himself that would prevent Manura from recognizing her father, letting her think he looked like someone else, but not him. I had my own affairs. I resigned from the clinic, even though I really enjoyed working there. It was a big surprise for the staff and for me too, but there was no other way out. I had already promised Gustavo to help. I understood that if I didn't, the feeling of guilt would suffocate me. I had an inexplicable feeling that something very good and wildly interesting was about to happen, so I prepared for the trip to the small coastal town with special anticipation. To be honest, I was tired of the hustle and bustle of the capital, the crowds of people, the streams of cars, and the incessant noise, even at night. Jocelyn happily accepted the news that we were going to a coastal town, although I was afraid that the girl would start protesting and not want to change her usual life. Josie immediately accepted Gustavo and started calling him Grandpa. Almost everything was ready. One late night, Gustavo appeared at the door of our apartment. My girls, we're leaving the day after tomorrow morning. Are you ready? Yes, ready. Josie jumped up and down with excitement. And you're going to put a pool there? A big inflatable one? Darling, we haven't even moved in yet, Gustavo began. You'll have a pool, I promise. That was the most important thing for the girl at the moment, so she ran to gather up her toys. Look, Sarita, here are my new documents, said Gustavo, handing me a small folder. Marcus Torres. Wow, but where's our Gustavo? I asked, raising my brown eyes to him. He's not in the picture anymore, smiled Uncle Marcus. That's what I'd have to call him now. The house is ready for our arrival. We're very lucky. It's very close to Manura's house. You bring me so much luck. It's not me, it's just that you've finally got your act together and decided to make a big change in your life and the lives of a few others. The universe can't ignore that and not help. Yes, perhaps, my dear niece. It's a good thing I don't have to forge any documents, I laughed. Of course. All right, I'm off. I'll pick you up the day after tomorrow morning, around 8. Stay in touch. Gustavo hurried out of the apartment. The house Gustavo had bought was quite old, but still solid. It was surrounded by a neglected garden, full of tall grass, among which you could see wilted rose bushes here and there. Compared to the capital, there was a heavenly silence there. It seemed that every bird and cricket in the grass could be heard. Josie started running around and talking non-stop about where her pool, lounger, and hammock would be. Gustavo and I just smiled, watching this energetic little girl. The new residents spent the whole day and the next busy moving in. Although we had only brought the essentials, we were organizing the rooms and trying to bring some order to the house. Mommy, can I go for a walk? Josie asked at one point. What? Don't go too far. How can a girl go out on her own? I replied. Sarah, this isn't the capital. You can get around the city in 4 hours, maybe 5 at the most. Let the little one go, it's safe here. I've read all about this place online. In fact, I found out a lot of interesting things. You live here and you don't even suspect that this remote town has such a rich history. All right, go on, but don't take your eyes off our reddish-brown roof, understand? You mustn't lose sight of it. Okay, Mom, I won't take my eyes off it, I promise, shouted the girl as she ran and disappeared behind the low gate. What a little firecracker, I commented, dusting the shelves in the living room. She's just a child, said Gustavo, unpacking another box. Oh, these are Josie's toys. She'll organize them herself when she gets back. I'll deal with the light bulbs now. There are barely any here. Are you going to be able to change a light bulb? I asked with a laugh. You're underestimating me. I can do anything. I just haven't done it out of necessity, but my father and grandfather taught me a lot of things back in the day. All right, if you say so. Otherwise, I'll have to send you to hospital the first day after the move. No hospital. We're starting a new life. I liked the changes that had taken place in Gustavo, my uncle at heart. He seemed to have gotten rid of something heavy that prevented him from moving and even breathing. It was as if he had started to live, simply live, instead of running from one project to another in an incomprehensible race for many years. This man essentially worked for work, but now he had a clear goal: to win the love of his daughter and granddaughters, to improve his relationship with his son-in-law. Josie didn't come home alone. She was with another girl, a little shorter than her, with brown hair tied up in 2 braids. This is Maria, said Gustavo, almost dropping the box of light bulbs. This is Manura. Mom, Grandpa, this is Sophia. Can we play in our garden? Asked Josie. Nice to meet you, Sophia. I'm Sarah. Of course you can play. Does Sophia's mother know where she is? I asked. My mom lets me play outside. She's happy that I have a friend so close now, replied the visitor. A moment later, the 2 girls were in the garden. That's her, right? Your granddaughter? I asked. Yes, there's no doubt about it. She looks just like my Manura. Sarah, I'm so scared of meeting her. I don't know what to say, how to behave. Play the part of Uncle Marcus by visiting. Everything will happen as it should. Don't think about anything, then everything will work out. Trust in fate. How nice that I convinced you to move in with me. I definitely couldn't have done it on my own. Thank you, Sarita. Thank you for everything. All right, start changing your light bulb soon. I patted him on the shoulder. We found ourselves at the market on a beautiful sunny morning. Manura was picking vegetables while I was picking fruit. Gustavo was wearing a straw hat and sunglasses. He looked like a farmer, which was good. It would be harder for Manura to recognize his father like that. "Hello," Minura called out when she saw Gustavo. "Good morning," I replied, trying to sound as casual as possible. My heart squeezed. I wanted so much to run and hug my little Minura, as I used to call her when she was a little girl. "You moved into the house with the red roof about a week ago, right?" asked Minura, coming a little closer. "Yes, that's right, with my niece and her little girl," I replied. "Oh, so that's your granddaughter, is it?" "What a lovely, happy little girl, Jocelyn," exclaimed Minura. "That's right, she is. Have you met her?" I asked. "She's a friend of my Sophia. They've barely met and are already inseparable. I'm so happy you've moved. Now my youngest will have a wonderful friend nearby," said Minura. "Yes, Sarah and I are very happy too. You should come and have tea with us sometime. We are neighbors after all. You can tell us about the local traditions," I smiled. "Of course, we'll come and visit. See you later," said Minura, putting her vegetables in a bag and almost disappearing from sight instantly. Gustavo didn't even have the chance to say goodbye. Yes, he remembered that his daughter had always been like that, restless and energetic, but at the same time the best student. He returned to his old new home with a bag of fresh fruit. "Did you buy bread?" I asked. "What? Oh, I forgot the bread. I'll go back and get it now," Gustavo replied. "What's wrong with you? You look strange," I asked. "I saw her, Sarita. I even spoke to her, can you imagine?" said Gustavo. "Did you find Minura?" I quickly wiped my hands with a kitchen towel and hugged Gustavo. "Yes, Minura," replied Gustavo, hugging me back. I almost ran to her with open arms. I could hardly hold myself back. My heart was racing. I've never felt like this before. I even invited her for tea. "I told you, you've just started living, not chasing the success of your company," I replied, pulling away slightly. "I'm so happy for you. Everything is going to work out. I can feel it." "Thank you, my little brown-eyed girl. Thank you 1,000 times." Tears filled the old man's eyes. He pinched his nose with 2 fingers, as people do to avoid crying. "I'll get the bread myself. Make the coffee. You're good at that. I'll be right back." I grabbed my bag and quickly headed for the exit. The Alvarez family arrived in droves. Everyone got to know each other quickly and started setting the table together. "You have a very nice uncle," said Minura as we cut the pie in the kitchen. "Yes, Uncle Marcus is very nice. He can be a bit pushy at times, but overall, he's a great guy," I smiled. "You know, when I look at him, my heart starts beating faster. I can't even explain it. It's like I've found my soulmate," said Minura hesitantly. "It happens. We'll be good neighbors," I replied. "Yes, exactly. Have you found a job yet?" asked Minura. "Not yet, to be honest. I haven't even tried." "Is it difficult to find work here?" "Well, it depends. Do you have a profession?" "I worked as a cardiology nurse." "Really? There's an opening for a school nurse. Would you like me to talk to them about you?" "Yes, I'd be very grateful. A school nurse is better than nothing. We have a wonderful administration here and the staff are great too." "That's great. My Josie is starting school this fall." "And my Sophia too," Minura exclaimed enthusiastically. "I wish they'd put them in the same class. Otherwise my Jocelyn won't survive being separated from Sophia." "Don't worry, I have some influence in our school, so I'll sort everything out." "Come on, everyone's waiting for the pie." We had tea and joked a lot. The men were discussing something, planning to have a barbecue next time. Letitia, Minura's eldest daughter, was telling something to the girls, who were staring at her with their mouths open, holding their breath. The most interesting thing about these meetings was that no one had to think about what to say or how to say it. Everything flowed naturally. It was simply pleasant to sit together in the living room, eating treats and chatting about various things. "Where did you move from?" asked Alejandro suddenly. There was an awkward silence. "We fled the capital," I said suddenly. "We got tired of the noise and the expensive life, so we rushed here, to the tranquility and the green." "Wise decision," praised Alejandro. "The hustle and bustle of the capital is a real poison to me. Every time I go there on business, I come home exhausted." "I haven't left our little paradise for years," added Minura, "and I don't feel like going. In my youth, I thought our capital was the best place on earth." Yes, everything changes. As he said goodbye to the Alvarez, I hugged each of them. "Come and visit us," said Letitia. "Your little sister always comes. Thank you, I will. Besides, mister, Marcus promised to help me with math, laughed the girl. You come and visit us too, Sarah. We'll talk and I'll discuss your job. Come and we'll talk. Yes, I'll definitely stop by. That night, Josie fell asleep quickly. I didn't even have to read her a story. After putting my daughter to bed, I went into the kitchen for a glass of water and found Gustavo sitting at the table, looking out of the window. The kitchen was illuminated by the round face of the moon, casting its silvery glow on the leaves of the trees in our garden. Can't sleep? I asked softly, sitting down in a chair next to him. Yes, old man's insomnia, he laughed. It's a full moon tonight. I always sleep badly during a full moon. Really? I've never paid attention to whether it's a full moon or not. I say I'm getting old. There's nothing I can do about it. How do you feel being with your daughter, son-in-law, and granddaughters? Do you still think Alejandro is a parasite and a scoundrel who won't end well? Sarah, stop teasing me. I realize I was wrong. Good for you, Uncle Marcus. Keep it up. You're a great actress. We got away from the noise of the capital. We wanted peace. You shouldn't have gone into medicine. You should have gone into acting. I had to say something. We didn't even discuss it before. I saw you there silent as a fish, so I had to take control. I think it was very plausible. Imagine, Minura wants to talk to the school administration and get me a job as a school nurse. Nice, isn't it? Why do you need to work? I promised I wouldn't need anything. You don't understand anything, Uncle. You and I, after all, are just ordinary people. We need to work. If I were you, I'd consider a job as a bus driver or something similar. Otherwise, it's very suspicious where the money comes from if neither of us works and we're raising Jocelyn. You're right, my wise niece. Where did I find a girl as clever as you? You know, I found myself in the same place as you, my dear uncle. You know, Sarah, sometimes I really feel like you're my niece, and Josie is my granddaughter, and I really like it here. I can't understand how I've lived in the capital all my life. We stayed up until after midnight. It was so nice to talk about what was on both our minds that moonlit night. The garden through the open window looked magical, as if a fairy with transparent wings was going to emerge from a branch at any moment, or a group of gnomes in search of gold appeared in the clearing. Beauty and silence. What more do you need for happiness, for true human happiness? Minura couldn't sleep that magical night. Tired of tossing and turning, she got out of bed and went to the small courtyard, settling into a wicker chair and lost in thought. She was thinking about her father. They hadn't seen each other for 17 years, a long 17 years. How was he living? Did he remember his only daughter? She knew almost nothing about her father. Sometimes there were mentions online, but mainly about his company, which still bore the name Minura. Why had he treated her and Alejandro like that? Why did he want to put Alejandro in prison forever? Didn't he understand that she loved him and still loved him? Minura felt sorry for her father, alive, successful, but so caught up in his trials that he couldn't simply enjoy living and loving his family. She still loved her father, despite the terrible and despicable act he had almost committed. She often thought about writing to him or going directly to the capital, to her birthplace, where she was born and raised, but she was afraid. She feared that her father would reject her, throw her out, and curse her. What if he had a wife? Maybe even a son now. When they separated, he was just over 50. Minura never tried to contact his only blood relative. Now, with these new neighbors, Minura was even more considering the possibility of visiting her father. Yes, I'll go and talk to him. Let me be rejected and cursed, but at least I'll know I'm not needed, and I'll let go of the illusion that someday we'll reconcile and hug, she thought, going to sleep. Minura's summer vacation began, the perfect time for a trip to her ancestral home. She decided not to tell her husband and daughters about it. Who knows where this little journey might lead? It's better they don't know. She'll tell them later, when she returns. Minura decided to say that she was just going to visit a childhood friend. She bought a train ticket. She had always loved trains since childhood. On the day of departure, I went to see Sarah, with whom I had become close friends. "Hi, darling," I shouted from the garden when I saw Minura. "Hi, can I come in?" "Sure, come in. Would you like some tea or juice?" "No, thank you, Sarah. I wanted to ask you something." "Sure, what do you need?" "I'm going to the capital today. I've already bought my ticket. I want to visit a friend, but who am I kidding? I want to visit my father. We haven't seen each other for 17 years. I can't live knowing he's out there and I can't even talk to him. What if he needs help? I've decided that if he kicks me out, at least I'll know if we can sort things out or not. I can still be angry with him sometimes, but he's still my biological father. I don't have anyone else in my family except Alejandro and the girls. How can I help you? I asked, a little pale. Are you all right? You look a bit pale. It's fine, probably just the heat. So what did you want to ask? Oh yes, could you look after my girls? Alejandro had to leave urgently on business, and then there's my trip. I'm afraid to cancel it. I might not have the courage to go afterwards. Yes, of course. I'll look after them. Don't worry about it. When are you leaving? I have to be at the station at 6. Why? The train leaves at 6:30. It's 3:30. I muttered quietly. What? Asked Manura. Nothing. I just said it's 3:30. Okay. I'm going to run. I need to do a few things before I leave. I plan to be back tomorrow. Okay, Minnie, go ahead. If the girls are with you, let them come here. I've made homemade lemonade. Yes, I'll tell them. Thank you, Sarah. You're so kind. My head turned into a cauldron with a potion. Thoughts boiled and spilled, but nothing valuable came out. How can I stop Manura if she's ready to find her father? What's the point of waiting? I must tell her the whole truth, but what if I spoil everything? Oh God, what to do, how to fix everything? Manura had 3.5 hours before departure. She had to think fast. You don't look very well, young lady, said Gustavo worriedly, turning away from the tablet where he read the news every morning, afternoon, and evening as usual. Uncle, Manura is going to visit her father, I said. What? How did you find out? She told me herself. If you haven't noticed, we've become great friends, so she still loves you, you old hypocrite. If you don't tell her the truth now, her heart will simply break and there'll be no going back. Manura will shut herself away and try to forget you forever. What do you suggest? Asked Gustavo, wiping his sweaty palms on his pants. I suggest telling Manura everything now. You have to do it in person. Go on, tell the girls to come here. I'm waiting with lemonade and popcorn, and you talk to your daughter. I'm scared, said Gustavo a little childishly. Don't be afraid. She loves you and can't wait to hug you. Believe me. And here come the girls. It's the perfect moment. Sophia, Josie, and Letitia entered the house, discussing something animatedly and laughing. Gustavo walked towards his daughter's house on wooden legs. What to say? How to start? What if she didn't want to hear it? If she hated him for yet another lie? Mr. Marcus, is everything all right? Asked Manura anxiously, as she met me at the gate where she was loosening the soil in the flower bed with small blue flowers. She was trying to calm down before the important trip. No, Manura, I mean, something happened many years ago. What are you talking about? About us, about you and me, 17 years ago. I made a lot of mistakes, but I paid for them, believe me. I lost so many years of love and joy. I'm guilty, my dear, very guilty. Before you and your mother. Dad, is that you? But why all this theater? How did you think of being Don Marcus? I didn't invent it, Minnie, Sarah did. Is she your mistress? No, what are you saying? Sarah is a nurse at the clinic where I was recently hospitalized. Are you ill? No, darling, let's go inside. I'll explain everything. It's a long story. We sat at the small round glass table in the kitchen, a father and daughter separated by 17 years. Both had exhausted their tears of longing and joy, so we just held each other's hands and remained silent. You know, Dad, I wanted to meet you so much, but I was afraid you'd reject me, said Manura in a low voice. Minnie, my dear, I was also afraid of invading your family after what I almost did. Thank God you came to see me that day. Forgive me, okay? Dad, come on, I want to tell the girls everything. Alejandro will be here around 9. I want to tell him everything too. Yes, let's go. That night was full of tears and hugs, lots of talking and excited shouting. I organized a real party, ordered food from a local restaurant, and with the help of the girls, decorated the house and garden with colored lights and ribbons. I want to make a toast, said Gustavo, when everyone had calmed down a bit and sat down at the table. Long live our small town. Yes, I didn't make a mistake. It really is our small town. Thanks to this place, I've recovered a daughter, a son-in-law, and my lovely granddaughters, and I've also found a true friend. Sarah, if it hadn't been for Sarita, I would never have had the courage to do what I did to that wonderful girl. Oh, stop it, Gustavo. I just wanted to help. I blushed slightly and lowered my eyes. And you did, exclaimed Alejandro. I'll paint your portrait. We'll worship you as an icon. Alejandro, stop joking, Manura scolded. I'm not joking. You'll see. My soul. In a few days, Sarah's portrait will be ready. Let's drink. Wait, I'm not finished, raised Gustavo's hand. I want everyone to live as a family, so I plan to stay here forever and build a nice house. And that's all now. The glasses clinked.